Today I want to talk to you about legacy and the importance of leaving a legacy that is not only good but godly. A legacy on which entire generations of families can be built. I'm speaking to you about this today because last week, one of the hardest days of my life, I had to face it head on as I lost my paternal grandfather. I called him Pawpaw Bill. Pawpaw Bill grew up in the mountains of Wilkes County. He grew up incredibly poor, the second child of 10. He knew what it was like to struggle. But you know what? Pawpaw Bill may not have come from much, but he became a very rich man. And I'm not talking about monetarily, even though he did all right. He was a rich man because today would have been his 59th wedding anniversary to my mama. He had 2 sons and 9 grandchildren, and so far 4 great-grandchildren that came out of his union with my mama. And that man loved Jesus. It was that man's faith that was demonstrated to me through word and deed that made it easy for me to come to faith in Jesus Christ. It was that man's love and compassion towards me that made me feel like I've always had a safe place. He was someone that I could talk to about anything. He would call me at times once I moved down to eastern North Carolina at the age of 13. And he would call me and we would talk sometimes multiple times a week, but at least once a week. And at times at hours at a time. And he just wanted to know how my day was. Wanted to know what I was thinking during the week. He would want to hear about my successes and my struggles. And that man prayed. Boy, did he pray. That man prayed for over 10 years, at least, for me to have a wife. And praise God, his prayer was fulfilled at the beginning of this month when I married my beloved. It was because of his prayers and his faithfulness to God. God heard his prayers and smiled on me and gave me a woman to love and to cherish. And I do not take that lightly. He was faithful and moved with compassion towards everyone he loved. And he loved deeply. He did not show favoritism. He loved and tried to bring the best out of all of his grandchildren and his children. And you know, he told me many, many times over my life, as soon as I was old enough to understand, he said, "Boy, you are going to do great things. I don't know what they are, but me and your mama have been talking about it since the day you were born. We knew that God kept you alive for a special purpose." And I believe he was speaking prophetically. And I believe that I have a divine mission to fulfill his prophecy, to use my gifts to preach not only the gospel of Jesus Christ, but the principles of liberty to America, to remind us who we really are. When I first started making YouTube videos, before I did any article writing or anything that I've ever done, when I was just a guy with a phone camera, which not much has changed, but I had a very, very small, insignificant following. He would share my videos consistently, and he watched them from the very beginning, so long as he was in a good mind. Unfortunately, Alzheimer's disease and dementia took my pawpaw away from me, and I miss him greatly. But I grieve with the Christian hope, knowing that I will see him again. Because the Christian hope, my friends, and Pawpaw would want me to tell you this, is absolute certainty that Jesus is the Christ, that his death and resurrection are the truth, and we can be made alive in him. Right now, Pawpaw Bill is more alive than you or I. Pawpaw Bill showed me the meaning of life, and first knowing Jesus, and then loving your family and your neighbor, which is something he did incredibly well. I told you before that he was not a great man of material wealth, but he was one of the most generous and gentle and kind souls that I have had the pleasure to ever know in this life. Very few people have I ever seen that loved as well as Pawpaw. He knew about the importance of time and investing in those people that you love, and passing on the importance of tradition. I am proud to be from Appalachia, in large part due to the influence of my Pawpaw Bill, to be one of those hillbillies. We come from a rich heritage. I know at least on one side of my family, I have relatives that go back to the beginning, the end of the founding era, at least. And I would wager that it's probably true on both sides. Unfortunately, I don't know much about my dad's side, because everyone that could tell me something has either went on to be with the Lord, the same as Pawpaw, or unfortunately, they're not in the right mind. But Pawpaw taught me so much. He taught me what it meant to be a good man, not just in word, but in deed. And I stand on his shoulders. Any good that I do is because, in part, of him and the things that he put into my father and myself. He was a great, great example of what it means to be a Christian and a Christ follower. You know, I've heard stories about the kind of man that he was before he came to Christ. And apparently he was a wild man. He went through a very wild phase before he came to Christ. But when I heard these stories about the man he used to be, they seemed so foreign to me, because that's not the man he was. And his life is a testament to the transformative power of Jesus Christ. And Pawpaw is living proof of what Timothy says about running the race and finishing the course. He has heard the words, "Well done, my faithful servant." And now he looks down and he waits on me and the rest of my family that are still here. And I promised him that I would make him proud. He believed in me, and so I feel that I have a responsibility to keep his legacy alive, to keep tradition alive, because that's what he would have wanted. And most importantly, to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, which I try to do on this channel when the opportunity presents itself. Because that's why America is struggling right now. Because we've forgotten the God of the Bible, as I've told you before. We've forgotten the God that the founders knew. The God who we made a covenant with. Jesus Christ. And it is my job to try to wake up as many Americans as I can that we are a covenant people. And because we are a covenant people, we have certain responsibilities. And the reason that America is struggling right now is because we've forgotten those responsibilities. As a holy people, we have failed on our responsibilities as a holy people. And we must get back to that. We must get back to our traditions. We must get back to the old ways. Something that would make Pawpaw Bill very proud. There are many things that I could go on and talk about Pawpaw Bill about. I could talk to you for hours about what kind of man he was and how he influenced me. But to end this video, I would like to share something very, very special that he used to do with me. I want to read to you from a book that he read to me from as a child. It's called The Jack Tales. And it was this book that greatly contributed to my love of storytelling. They are old folk tales from southern Appalachia. And I want to read to you a tale right now. This is Pawpaw Bill's copy of the Jack Tales. And it's one of few things that I wanted to remember him by because it was so important to me. And I want to read to you one entitled Jack and the King's Girl. And it's in the vernacular of my people from long ago in the Appalachian Mountains. Jack had an uncle, lived a right smart distance from where he and his mother lived at. And he decided one time he'd like to go up and see his uncle. Jack had got to work. He wasn't lazy no more, not as much as he used to be. So he worked all week getting in wood and fixing everything up around the place. Then he pulled out. Had to go right by the king's house on the way to his uncle's. The king had an awful pretty girl, but all her life she never had laughed. And the king had put out an advertisement that anybody who'd make her laugh could marry her. Jack got down close to where the king lived, and the girl was out on the porch. She saw Jack and says, "Where you started, Jack?" Jack told her, and she says to him, "I hope you have a good time." So Jack went on. His uncle was awful pleased to see him. They'd work a little every night. Somebody'd come up there to play and make music. Jack had such a good time he plumb forgot about getting back home. So finally, his uncle says to him, "Jack, your mother will be getting uneasy about you. She'll be needing you to get up wood, too. Don't you reckon you better go back home?" Jack says, "Yes, I guess I'd get back pretty soon. You fix up and go back today, Jack, and I'll give you a present. I'm going to give you a big darning needle. You can take that and learn how to sew your overalls when they get tore." So he went up and hunted up a big darning needle and put a long thread through it and gave it to Jack. Jack pulled out, put the thread over his shoulder, and let the needle swing behind him. got back down to the king's house. That girl was there and says, "You getting back, are you, Jack?" "Yes," says Jack. "Had an awful good time." "What's that over your shoulder?" "It's a big darning needle Uncle gave me to hire me to go back home." "Needle," she says. "Law me, I never did see a man tote a needle that way. You ought to stick it in your shirt bosom." "Well, says Jack. And Jack got in home, told his mother about all the good time he'd had, started into working about the place, and kept studying about getting back to his uncle's again. So finally, Jack's mother says to him, "You've worked right good this week, Jack. You fix up your wood and all, and I'll let you go back to your uncle's again. But you mustn't stay long this time." Jack got everything fixed up and he pulled out. Got to the king's house. The girl was there and says, "Hello, Jack. Where did you start this time?" Jack told her. She says, "Hope you have a good time and get you another good present." Well, Jack and his uncle went places that week, and Jack had a good time hearing fiddle music and banjo picking. He never did study about going back home. So one day his uncle says, "You better go back home now, Jack. I'm going to give you another premium. It's a sword my grandpa gave me. It was used in the Revolutionary War." He went and got the sword and gave it to Jack, and Jack started on home. He took that sword and stuck it right through the shirt bosom out the other side. The king's girl was in the yard and saw Jack coming and says, "Hello, Jack." Then she saw the sword sticking out of Jack's shirt and says, "Law me, Jack, you've plumb ruined your shirt. Why, you ought to have carried that on your shoulder." "Well, says Jack, next time I will." Jack got back home, played around with that sword till finally he got a little tired of it. So he worked all week and got everything shaped up and says to his mother, "How about me going back to my uncle's again?" His mother let him go. Jack saw the king's girl out at the gate and stopped him and talked to him a while. Got back to his uncle's and had a big time. A gang of young folks had come up there to Jack's uncle's place, and they'd been making music and singing old songs and stay till nearly daylight. Then him and his uncle would go some other place the next night. Finally, the uncle says, "It's about time you went back home, Jack." "Yes, I reckon it is," says Jack. "I'm going to give you a nice present today. Maybe it'll keep you home a month this time. I got a young colt you can take it home and break it into ride. It'll take you some time to get it broke good." So he got a halter and brought the colt to Jack the colt. Jack thanked him and started on home. Got down to the king's place. Jack got right down under the colt and got it up on his shoulder. The king's girl saw him coming and ran out to the fence and says, "Law me, Jack, you the awfulest, foolest man I ever did see. You ought to ride that." "Well, says Jack, I think I'll try that next time." When Jack got home, he went to fooling around with that colt. Never thought a thing about going back to his uncle's till nearly about a month. Then his colt began to get sort of old to him, and he commenced to going back to his uncle's. "Why, Jack," says his mother, "I knowed you wouldn't never leave your colt." "Well," says Jack, "you can take care of it while I'm gone." So Jack got all his work done up and pulled out again. That girl was out in the yard, and Jack talked a while. Then Jack went to his uncle's. They worked around the place a little hunting a time or two, and every night the young folks had come there, and Jack would go frolicking with them. They made music and got to playing Weevily Wheat and Skip Maloo and Run and Eat, handed reels and all. Jack never had such a good time, and his uncle was an awful good hand at call figures. Jack plumb forgot about the colt and his mother being likely to run out of firewood till pretty soon his uncle said he reckoned Jack better be getting back. Yes, I guess I ought to have went before this time. I got a nice little heifer up here, Jack. I'm going to give it to you, and you'll have a good milk cow to go with your horse. You can feed it real well, and your mother can have can milk it for you. Got him lying and tied that heifer and gave it to Jack. Jack thanked him and started leading the heifer on back home. Jack got down to the king's house, and he saw that girl was out washing place where they were all working with the clothes. So Jack remembered, and he went to jump that heifer's back. Or somehow or other, he landed on its hind side too. Grabbed hold of its tail and started hollering. The young heifer bawled and jumped from one side of the road to the other and went a-galloping on down to where the king's folks were washing at. The king's girl looked up and saw Jack getting shook up and down and slipping first one side and then the other on the heifer's back, and him holding tail and hollering for help. And she raised up and laughed so loud they heard her all over town. She stood there, laughed and slapped her hands till the king came out. And when he saw Jack and that calf, he started laughing too. Laughed till he had to sit down. Finally, some of them caught the heifer and helped Jack off. The old king took Jack in town and bought him a new suit of clothes. Then he hitched up 2 fine horses to a buggy and rode Jack and his girl to a big church and had them married. The girl went on home with Jack the last time I was down there, and they're getting on all right. That, ladies and gentlemen, was my frail attempt to read a selection from a book of tales that is important to me and my culture, to honor my grandfather, even though I couldn't do it nearly as good as he could. I haven't read these tales since I was a teenager, but I cherished them, and I cherish his copy of this book. They were repackaged by Richard Chase, and I'll leave a link in the description of this YouTube video if you would like to buy them. I promise you they will make you laugh and smile, and these tales are as rich as the history of Appalachia itself. I love you, Pawpaw, and I will forever honor your memory and the godly man that you were and are. I'll see you later, and I love you. Tell Jesus I said hello, and you wait on me. My friends, this has been my attempt to honor one of the greatest men I have ever known. Thank you for indulging me in this, and I'll see you soon.